Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I apologize. I took yesterday off. I didn't announce that. I realized I can't take days off any longer. President Trump is too busy. There's so many breaking stories this morning, so we've got a little catch up to do. Let's first go to some viewer comments from Friday's broadcast and a little bit yesterday. First off, just saw the estimates of how many chicken wings will be eaten during the Super Bowl. If they killed off so many chickens, how can that be the fact? Also, puzzling over the fact that I haven't seen chicken prices increase, and yet we have no eggs. That's a fair point. That's a good question. I don't have the answer for that, but kind of interesting. You're right. Next up, Taylor Swift got on camera during the live game. I didn't see President Trump. I did see Trump. He was cheered during the national anthem when he saluted. Now, I understand, and Donald Trump was quick to point this out, I understand that Taylor Swift was booed when she was shown on the big screen. But yes, there wasn't a lot of coverage. Now, if you were watching the program on Friday, we had more viewers think that Taylor Swift would be shown on camera more than Donald Trump. It seems to be about a tie to me. Both were not covered as much as we may have assumed that they would be. I understand Donald Trump left halfway through the game as well. For obvious reasons. Number one, he had probably 100 executive orders to sign, but also the game at that point was pretty much all over but the shouting. Comment from Fred. Fred writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I actually survived a full 20-minute segment on Sunday morning news shows about USAID. Nothing but starving kids being fed and hidden face interviews about the wonderful work that they do. Throw in a Democrat talking about how the richest man in the world is taking food from starving children. There was not even a hint about the corruption and wasted money on international DEI and transgender programs or being a CIA ATM for foreign government interference. Also, I'd love to see a Doge deep dive into how Congresswoman AOC complained that she couldn't afford Washington rent when first elected, but is already worth over $20 million. Clinton Foundation getting tens of millions from USAID. Chelsea Clinton being set up for an annual multi-million-dollar gift by Obama administration in perpetuity. Thank you, Fred. Thank you for that comment. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Can you tell me how the state of Pennsylvania can have a budget of $52 billion and New York needs a budget of $252 billion? That's why our taxes are out of control. Yes, $252 billion budget, a lot going to illegal immigration as well. But we see the waste when it comes to spending. Well, for instance, I know I keep pointing to it, but what was it, $13.5 million going to a program to implement cell phone bans in schools? Now, seems as simple as the administrators and the teachers saying no more cell phones in school. But no, in New York State, that costs $13.5 million. We still have not been told exactly why, though New York City was already complaining and saying it wasn't enough. So you raise a good point. The state of Pennsylvania, $52 billion budget, where we in New York are spending upwards of $250 billion. Comment from a different viewer. I heard the announcers for the Super Bowl say President Trump was the first president to attend a Super Bowl. Interesting. Yes, first sitting president. I know George H.W., I think he flipped the coin one year. But yes, Donald Trump, the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl. As I said, he left, it sounds like around halftime. They did not show him on camera very much, but he did get a big cheer when it was during the national anthem. Okay. Hamas has canceled the hostage release in a breaking story from late yesterday. Hamas has announced that it's suspending all Gaza hostage releases until further notice. The terrorist group blames Israel for violating the ceasefire agreement by delaying the return of displaced people and blocking aid and supplies from reaching the Gaza Strip. Announcing the cancellation, the group said during the past 3 weeks, the resistance leadership has monitored the enemy's violations and failure to abide by the terms of the agreement. Well, Donald Trump weighed in on this late yesterday, saying, as far as I'm concerned, if all the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at noon, at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out, he told reporters. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday. And if they're not returned, all of them, not in dribs and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2, by Saturday at 12 o'clock. And after that, I would say all hell is going to break out. And I saw coverage of this yesterday where the media had these quote-unquote experts, kind of the deep state people that Trump is trying to weed out, saying that threats don't normally work with terrorist organizations. Well, we know Biden's wheat talking did absolutely nothing for releasing the hostages and really hurt Israel in so many different ways. So maybe it's time to try something new. Now, Trump did not rule out sending United States troops to the region, telling reporters, we will see what happens. And he did not expand on what he meant by all hell is going to break out. But you know Hamas believes him. You'll find out, and they'll find out too. Hamas will find out what I mean. Trump later said he was speaking for myself and emphasized that Israel had the right to override any statement he made. But for myself, Saturday at 12 o'clock. And if they're not here. All hell is going to break out, he reiterated. Trump said he feared many, if not all, the dozens of remaining hostages are dead and accused Hamas of mistreating those who had been released. Based on what I saw over the last few days, they're not going to be alive for long, Trump said, after previously comparing the released men's state to that of a Holocaust victim. Hamas announced early Monday it was scrapping a scheduled hostage release for this weekend, arguing that Israel had not lived up to its side of the deal. So there's a little bit of a breaking story this morning. Trump threatening Hamas that all hell will break loose. Also, late yesterday, that's what's interesting. The news cycle under President Trump is quite fascinating, isn't it? You could go to bed and not know that a major story broke from overnight, or, for instance, that we've been talking about a lot on the program, the weekends. And I had predicted at the time, and that prediction came through, and I had forgot about it. It was an easy prediction to make, but back in Trump's first term, where reporters started griping about the hours they were forced to work because there was just so much news under a Trump administration. Now, keep in mind, it's kind of like the federal employees that are complaining about returning back to work because they have been working from home since COVID. The reporters are in a similar boat where they had 4 years of not much news coverage under the Biden administration. He wasn't doing the press conferences. He wasn't doing the speeches. Very rare to see him in a media setting. Trump is the complete opposite, even something as simple as that the viewer had pointed out, being the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl game, as if he's not busy enough. And let me tell you, I've got story after story about how busy he is. We are going to talk a little bit about Doge. I also have got a couple updates on New York State, as that one viewer pointed out, our $252 billion budget. But it is interesting. Hochul seems to now be walking back the plan that was originally put forth by Democrats to delay holding a special election for Elise Stefanik's seat. She may be walking back from that. We're going to talk about that. Also, a few bills in Albany trying to address anti-Semitism on college campuses. Is it enough? Well, we'll discuss that as well. So we've got New York updates. We got Trump updates like this one. President Trump pardoned former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich yesterday evening and publicly suggested he would nominate the disgraced Democrat to be U.S. ambassador to Serbia. It's my honor to do it. I've watched him. He was set up by a lot of bad people, the president told reporters. He wasn't quite as successful, but he had somebody that saw what was going on. I don't know him other than I believe he was on The Apprentice. He did sign a full and unconditional pardon for Governor Rod Blagojevich. If you recall, at the time, one of the reasons why he got in trouble, there was a suggestion that he was looking for payments to appoint someone to Barack Obama's former Senate seat. Basically saying, hey, you want to be a senator? I will appoint you to that Senate seat for, allegedly, this is alleged, for a certain amount of money. Now, Trump was asked whether he considered appointing Rod Blagojevich as America's envoy to Belgrade. Trump said, no, but I would. No, but I would. What? Trump commuted Blagojevich's 14-year sentence on federal corruption charges in February of 2020, but did not issue a full pardon at the time. Blagojevich was convicted of 18 counts of corruption back in 2011, involving handing out political favors in exchange for financial benefits, including trying to solicit campaign money in return for an appointment to Barack Obama's Senate seat following his 2008 election to the presidency. I've got this thing, and it's blanking golden, Blagojevich was recorded saying of Obama's about to be vacated Senate seat. I'm just not giving it up for nothing. At trial, the then governor insisted he merely meant it was a unique opportunity to appoint someone. But another recording captured Blagojevich implying he was offered $500,000, while prosecutors said he wanted as much as $1.5 million. There's some other examples there. But the blunt-talking governor, who appeared on Celebrity Apprentice back in 2010, told Joe Rogan that the president also was persecuted, pointing at Trump's conviction in Manhattan last year on 34 felonies of falsifying business records. What happened to Trump is so important. They did it in those different courts where they got convictions for things that weren't crimes. So again, if you're just joining us this morning, some breaking news from late yesterday. Donald Trump has pardoned disgraced ex-Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, a name, a blast from the past, a name that we haven't thought about in quite some time. That's just a couple breaking stories coming from the Trump administration. We've got plenty more. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we missed yesterday's program. I didn't realize that would lead to about 25 different things we have to catch up on, but we're going to do our best. Did you hear? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because, again, the media is trying to portray it as a negative. But Donald Trump discussing perhaps ending pennies, the making of pennies by the federal government. We could talk about that as well. There's definitely some interesting things that every once in a while I say, I can't believe he decided to do that because I hadn't even thought of it. You'll have four kind of normal presidential stories in a day, and one like buying Gaza or buying Greenland or ending pennies, one that just throws you for a little bit of a loop. So we're going to talk about some of those when we come back. How did everybody enjoy their Super Bowl? What did you think of President Trump's interview with Bret Baier before the broadcast? That was around 3. It was supposed to be about 3. It played a little bit later. I think it was closer to 3:30. Also, we made the prediction, you the viewers made the prediction that Taylor Swift would be shown more on screen. It looks like we're about tied there. Neither Taylor Swift nor Donald Trump were shown that often on TV, though Donald Trump did receive quite a ovation when they did show him, and I understand Taylor Swift quite the opposite. When she was shown on a big screen, was booed. For whatever that's worth, whatever you think that means, that's the nature of it. So let's take a short break. We're just getting warmed up here. So glad that you joined us, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Hustling plus overbooked plus bustling plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done. Plus too busy plus bustling plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
I have diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardians at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
There's been another deadly shooting at a local elementary school. According to authorities, the suspect acquired the gun from a family member's home before using it to take the lives of innocent children and teachers.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. It looks like the penny is leaving. What is your 2 cents? Thank you very much. Well, it actually costs nearly 4 cents to make every penny. So Donald Trump tweeting out late Sunday that for far too long, the United States has minted pennies, which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful. I've instructed my Secretary of U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. This is kind of one of these rapid fire, as they call it, efforts by the administration. I understand that more maps are now appearing to say the Gulf of America. That's maybe another example of a story that we did not expect to see coming. But at least with that, he brought it up during a campaign event. The penny was never really a part of his various campaign events. That was not a talking point that he used, at least that I'm familiar with. They said it cost nearly 4 cents. For every penny. But the one problem that people are pointing to is that we're also losing money on the nickel. The nickel at obviously 5 cents is what its value is at, but it costs nearly 14 cents to make. Now, Robert K. Treist, an economics professor at Northeastern University, has argued that there might be some wiggle room in this. The process of discontinuing the penny in the U.S. is a little unclear. It would likely require an act of Congress, but the Secretary of Treasury might be able to simply stop the minting of new pennies. Members of Congress have repeatedly introduced legislation taking aim at the zinc coin with copper plating. Proposals over the years have attempted to temporarily suspend the penny's production, eliminate it from circulation, or require the prices be rounded to the nearest 5 cents. Proponents of eliminating the coin have cited cost savings, speedier checkout at cash registers, and the fact that a number of countries have already eliminated their 1 cent coin, like Canada, for instance, stopped all the way back in 2012. Trump wrote, "Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time." I don't really have a strong, to the viewer who asked my 2 cents, which is very clever. I don't really have a strong opinion on it. If it saves money, why not? Most people, for better or for worse, are using their cards anyway. So I don't have a strong opinion on it, but if it does seem anyway to save us money, why not? It's one of many cost-saving proposals that the president has pushed forward, along with Elon Musk. Oh, what are your thoughts? We're going to talk more about it in depth, but when Trump gave his interview on Sunday, I've got to admit that I was a little disappointed by this, where he suggested that maybe J.D. Vance wasn't his successor, that J.D. Vance wasn't. He didn't say he was a wrong person for it, just that he wasn't quite there yet. Well, a lot of people are saying, well, this is because he's going to be asking for an endorsement probably within 2 years, right, if he decides to run for president. But many are speculating that the reason Trump did not give a full-throated endorsement already is because he still believes, and he said it time and time again, that he should be able to run for a third term. Now, I would like to hear your thoughts on that. I think there's some age issues there. Obviously, some constitutional issues that they'd have to work through. But that's the speculation as to why the president didn't fully endorse J.D. Vance. We'll tell you about that in a little more in depth later on. But another story that broke overnight, Trump's DOJ is going to toss Mayor Adams' historic bribery case and agrees with the Democrats that charges were politically motivated by the Biden administration. The Justice Department ordered Manhattan prosecutors Monday to dismiss the historic bribery case against Mayor Eric Adams, siding with Adams that the charges under the Biden administration were politically motivated and hampered his ability to combat the migrant crisis in New York City. The new DOJ under President Donald Trump instructed the Southern District of New York to dismiss the case without prejudice, meaning charges could be refiled in the future. You are directed, as authorized by the Attorney General, to dismiss the pending charges against Adams. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove wrote in a letter obtained by the New York Post. It cannot be ignored that Mayor Adams criticized the prior administration's immigration policies before the charges were filed, and the former U.S. Attorney's public action created appearances of impropriety. Bove wrote that the charges have improperly interfered with Mayor Adams' campaign in the 2025 mayoral election and also has unduly restricted Mayor Adams' ability to devote full attention and resources to the illegal immigration and violent crime that escalated under the policies of the prior administration. The immigration crackdown is a focus out of Trump out of the gate in his second term, and Adams has signaled a willingness to support harsh measures, including rolling back sanctuary city policies. But Adams isn't entirely in the clear, as Bove's letter also notes that the matter shall be reviewed by the confirmed U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York following the November 2025 mayoral election. There shall be no further targeting of Mayor Adams or additional investigative steps, and you are further directed to take all steps within your power to cause Mayor Adams' security clearances to be restored. A motion outlining the legal reasons behind the dismissal is expected to be filed as soon as today. Adams on Monday, a rep for SDNY declined to comment. But Adams on Monday night offered a measured reaction to the news, telling Fox News while out for dinner, "We are not saying, quote, we were just notified of the possibility that the DOJ has communicated with the local U.S. Attorney's office here. I'd like to speak to my lawyer first and get a better understanding of exactly what's taking place now, because right now I don't have any information." So there you are. That's good news for Mayor Adams, as polls, it's interesting, and I wasn't going to jump to New York issues, but we may here in a moment. But as all the talk really in the mayor's race has been about former Governor Andrew Cuomo, there's a new poll out that does show a little bit of trouble for Cuomo. Whether or not, and I must not have printed it out this morning, but that he is supposedly the front runner, but there is a poll out that shows that he still has, because of his sketchy past moves, we'll say, he does have a couple of hurdles to overcome, and that's ignoring the fact, which I think is one of the most disastrous decisions ever made by an elected official, which is the nursing home debacle tragedy that Governor Cuomo was involved in that led to the deaths of so many vulnerable people. So you point to that, then you point to the various harassment charges, and he's got a little bit of a difficulty there. But according to many polls, Cuomo is the front runner and could defeat Mayor Adams in that mayoral race. But we're not going to talk about New York. We're going to keep along here because we're just scratching the surface of all that Trump has done the last 2 to 3 days. So when we come back, a few more of these decisions, a couple of your comments. I'd love to hear from you. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Like the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy in your very own Hesselson's Hot Tub. With every spa purchase, Hesselson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hesselson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hesselson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horses. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer. If they get rid of the penny, wouldn't they have to raise sales tax from 8% to 10%? I guess that could be the excuse they would need. I understand that every dollar it wouldn't work because of the 8 cents. So maybe that would be an excuse for them to raise sales tax. I guess time will tell. Trump also signed an executive order yesterday reversing President Biden's plastic straw ban. President Trump inked an executive order yesterday night reversing former President Joe Biden's ban on plastic straws in the federal government. We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work, referring to the paper straws. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. He first announced Friday he was going to sign an order reversing the Biden-era policy to promote the use of paper straws over single-use plastics. Biden vowed back in July of 2024 to phase out plastics in federal food service with the end of procurement day due in 2027. Plastic production and waste have doubled over the past 2 decades, littering our ocean, poisoning the air of communities near production facilities, and threatening public health. The Democrat administration said at the time. Environmentalists have supported plastic straw bans, citing their impact on ocean wildlife. Critics of the reaction have argued that they are unfairly inconvenienced to solve a pollution problem to which the U.S. contributes such a small factor. Trump himself has complained that paper straws, quote, don't work due to them getting soggy and not holding their shape. I'll be signing an executive order next week ending the ridiculous Biden push for paper straws, which don't work, he said on Truth Social Friday. Back to plastics. Trump then went further writing that Biden's mandate was dead. Crooked Joe's mandate, no plastic straws, only paper, is dead. Enjoy your next drink without a straw that's disgustingly dissolving in your mouth. It disintegrates as you drink it. So getting rid of pennies and bringing back plastic straws. Your thoughts on all of these issues and much more. This is what I mean. When you have so much going on under the Trump administration, it's hard to keep up. Now, another breaking story from last night. A federal judge did halt Trump's Fed worker buyout after 65,000 people took him up on his offer. A federal judge yesterday temporarily blocked the Trump administration from moving forward with a plan to buy out tens of thousands of government workers. In an order from the bench, Boston U.S. District Judge George O'Toole paused a deadline requiring all federal employees to either take the severance or return to their offices until he determines whether to slap the administration with a preliminary injunction sought by 3 public sector unions. The Office of Personnel Management offered the buyouts on January 28th to more than 2 million federal workers after President Trump signed an executive order requiring agencies to, quote, terminate remote working agreements and to force employees back to their respective duty stations full-time. Last week, the American Federation of Government Employees, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and National Association of Government Employees, as well as 20 Democratic state attorneys general, filed a lawsuit seeking to halt OPM Acting Director Charles Ezell from enforcing the memo titled Fork in the Road that offered buyouts to the executive branch workers. We are pleased that today the court continued his injunction from last week, continuing to enjoin OPM and defendants from implementing the Fork in the Road directive, the so-called bailout. We hope that the decision today will provide civil service workers with the assurance that the American people have their backs. And we will continue to pursue all legal options to ensure that they are protected and the law is upheld. Now, OPM warned last week that government employees who did not take the buyout by February 6th would not be given a second chance to receive full pay and benefits until the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. O'Toole, an appointee of former President Bill Clinton, lifted the deadline indefinitely following the afternoon hearing. More than 65,000 federal workers have already cashed out as part of the so-called deferred resignation program. Lawyers for the government unions have argued in filings that Ezell's resignation push is unlawful under the Administrative Procedural Act and Anti-Deficiency Act. Those laws prohibit the federal government from entering a contract that is not fully funded and lay out steps from agencies to propose and establish regulations. So, of course, not a surprise, as we had mentioned on this program, Trump has been very prepared for lawsuits coming his way. In this case, you're always going to be able to find an activist-type judge to side against Trump. That is just a matter of fact. We saw it in the first administration, his first term, I should say, and we're seeing it again now. Also, Trump ordered 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum without exceptions for allies. It's a big deal. This is beginning of making America rich again. And I'm simplifying our tariffs on steel and aluminum so that everyone can understand exactly what it means. It's 25% without exception or exemption. And that's all the countries, no matter where it comes from, all countries. If it's made in the United States of America, there is no tariff, zero. We don't need it to be made in Canada. That's why Canada should be our 51st state. He's pushing that again. Trump said moments after signing the documents that he would consider granting tariff exemptions to Australia in response to a request from Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. You're going to ultimately have a price reduction because they're going to make their steel here. There's not going to be any tariff. These foreign companies will move to the United States, will make their steel and aluminum in the United States. Ultimately, it'll be cheaper, but we'll also have jobs, many, many jobs. So 25% tariff on steel and aluminum without exception for allies. So yes, it was a busy 24 to 48 hours where the president was focusing on things like 25% tariffs, also getting rid of the penny, bringing back plastic straws. How many other things have we? Rod Blagojevich being pardoned. Those are just some of your breaking stories. The DOJ tossing Eric Adams' historic bribery case. Those are just some of the issues, some of the things that the president has been up to in the last 24 to 48 hours. So your thoughts on all of those topics and more. I'd love to hear from you. Get your take on what happens if the penny goes away. Does it bother you? Is it a concern for you? Also, what are your thoughts on the pardons? And I didn't realize, and this only really affects federal workers, but I didn't know the plastic straw ban was even really in effect, but that's because I'm not a federal worker. But your thoughts on that as well. We've got other issues to bring up as well with the Trump administration, so stay with us. We will be right back after this quick commercial break.
Do you want a new bathroom but don't think it's in your budget? Bath Planet is now offering special financing with no payments or interest for an entire year. Sit back, relax, and we will bring the showroom to you. Our certified design team will show you hundreds of color and pattern options and work with you to build your dream bathroom with a price good for an entire year. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
In today's world, securing your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big...
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. A lot of comments coming in. Let's get right to them as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Mark writes in. Mark says, here's an idea. Make the penny and the nickel out of plastic. Cheaper way to do it, and it's recyclable. That's an interesting idea. How, and it should be able to hold up if you make them thick enough. Sure. A comment from a different viewer. What's next? Nickels? Yeah, probably. Probably would be next. Ken writes in. Oh, Ken wrote in a long one. Ken says, this is what the sheeple heard on Sunday's legacy media shows to scare them into activism against the Trump administration. And before I read what you said, Ken, there is this call for activism. There was actually a preacher who said you got to get violent in the streets. You've heard a lot of really loaded language coming from Democrat politicians. And now there is a piece talking about, which we'll probably get to later on, about how there is going to be plans of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not an all-out assault on Musk's plans. All right. But this is from Ken. This is what you would have heard on the legacy media shows on Sunday. We're heading in for a constitutional crisis. Yes, we've heard that a lot. That's been kind of the term that everybody's throwing around. Even Governor Hochul was saying it, but I'll continue. Trump and Musk are gutting the government. Tariffs are starting trade wars around the world. Our biggest ally, the Canadians, are becoming unhappy with the U.S. Musk is giving himself a helping hand on his DOD contracts. Trump's comments on Gaza are outrageous. Trump's comments on Gaza. Trump is usurping Congress's authority. The country is less safe by reducing the amount of FBI agents. DOJ is accessing citizens' private information to use against them. And also we learned unfunding USAID is actively killing children around the world, allowing DOJ to take over the government, giving a helping hand to China and Russia on getting bigger footholds in foreign countries and keeping food from starving people. Thank you for the recap, Ken. You could almost write these talking points ahead of time, can't you? that well, especially with Constitution. That's a term they've been throwing around for quite some time. So yes, that comes as no surprise, but I thank you for doing the dirty work and watching the Sunday shows. I didn't catch too much. I did watch the interview with Donald Trump and Bret Baier on Fox News before the Super Bowl. What is your thoughts on taking the position that J.D. Vance may not be his successor? We're going to talk about that. Is he opening the door for maybe someone like Don Jr. to be his successor? Or is he really thinking about a third term and not wanting to endorse anyone? That's been kind of the speculation around conservative circles. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I was a little disappointed to not hear a full-throated endorsement of J.D. Vance, as I like J.D. Vance a lot. But Trump has said that Ukraine has essentially agreed to allow the United States access to $500 billion in rare earth minerals. They have tremendously valuable land in terms of rare earth minerals, in terms of oil and gas, in terms of other things. I want to have our money secured because we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine. This was during that interview on Sunday. Trump insisted that the U.S. could have access to Ukraine's natural resources regardless of whether a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine can be successfully negotiated, arguing that more than $300 billion the U.S. has provided Ukraine dwarfs while other nations have contributed to the war effort. They may make a deal. They may not make a deal. They may be Russian someday, or they may not be Russian someday. But we're going to have all this money in Ukraine, and I say I want it back. I told them I want the equivalent of like $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals, and they've essentially agreed to do that. I said to them, we have to get something. We can't continue to pay this money. If we're talking about a deal, then let's do a deal. We are only for it, said Zelensky at the time. We need to stop Putin and protect what we have, a very rich region in central Ukraine. So that's another update. We got a couple comments here that we'll read in just a moment. We got so many breaking news stories. You know what? I do want to talk about New York State, but perhaps we'll do that when we come back from break. Before I do so, I just wanted to highlight this because we ran out of time last time Assemblyman Phil Palmisano was on the program, and so I wanted to make sure to highlight this for you, that his second annual student art contest, the deadline for that is coming right up. Entries must be submitted by a teacher or parent and must include the participating student's name, grade level, age, address, phone numbers, and email. Artworks will be hung through the Legislative Office building during Donate Life Month in April. Winners will receive a $100 gift card and will be recognized at a press conference to be held on April 8th in Albany. Students are encouraged to share their donation stories and perspectives on organ donation through their art. Submissions must be in by February the 28th, and winners will be notified on March 21st. There are 4 separate categories for the contest: elementary, 4th and 5th grades, middle school, 6th through 8th grades, and high school, 9th and 10th grades, and 11th and 12th grades. So there you go. I want to make sure that I mentioned that before time ran up and give you plenty of time to get your art project going before submission day on February the 28th. Okay. We're jumping around a lot here this morning. Pete Hegseth announced yesterday that he has directed the U.S. Army to change the name of Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg, but this time with a twist. Hegseth signed a memo aboard a U.S. Air Force C-17 before landing in Germany, ordering the renaming of the North Carolina base to Fort Roland L. Bragg, not the Confederate general that was the previous namesake. That's right, Bragg is back, he said after signing the memo. The name of the military installation was changed in 2023 as part of a broad Department of Defense initiative motivated by the then 2020 George Floyd protests to rename military installations bearing the name of Confederate soldiers. The base was originally named in 1918 for General Braxton Bragg, a Confederate general from North Carolina who was known for owning slaves and losing key Civil War battles that contributed to the Confederacy's downfall. The new name pays tribute to Roland L. Bragg, a World War II hero who earned the Silver Star and Purple Heart for his exceptional courage during the Battle of the Bulge. Quote, during these hellish conditions and amidst ferocious fighting, Bragg saved a fellow soldier's life by commandeering an enemy ambulance and driving it 20 miles to transport a fellow wounded warrior to an Allied hospital in Belgium. The military installation is one of the largest in the world and is home to the Army's famed 82nd Airborne Division and the United States Special Operations Command. So as Pete Hegseth said, that's right, Bragg is back. It is now Fort Bragg, but named after Roland L. Bragg, a World War II hero. So that's another update. These are some of the things that will leave your radar quickly if we don't pay attention to them, because there's just so much breaking news under the Trump administration. When we come back, we are going to talk a little bit about New York State, but kind of recapping with all the breaking stories, your thoughts on ending the production of pennies, which Trump signaled he would do yesterday. Your thoughts on Rod Blagojevich being pardoned, or the DOJ dropping the case against Mayor Adams during the campaign season here, because he's got to run for re-election. And many speculate that former governor, disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo, is going to run. Also, your thoughts on Trump saying that J.D. Vance is not his successor necessarily. All of that and much more. But I want to hear, most importantly, I want to hear from you. Your thoughts and your thoughts on Sunday's game. In the interview with Donald Trump, as we mentioned, there was no really clear winner on who was shown more, though I think there's a clear winner at the end of the day, because when they showed Trump, he was cheered during the national anthem, and when they showed Taylor Swift on the big screen, she was roundly booed to the point where she didn't really expect it. That's not really the welcome that she's used to. Normally, of course, being cheered as that kind of pop star. Well, it looks like Philly fans, because there seem to be a lot of Philly fans in the stadium, they did not seem as impressed with Taylor Swift's star power, but they did seem very impressed with Donald Trump saluting as the national anthem played. So that was a crystal clear difference. So I guess if you put time aside of how much they were actually shown on camera, that I don't have a final number on. It didn't seem that often, but you would say at the end of the day, the clear winner in that was Donald Trump being cheered, and Taylor Swift quite the opposite, receiving a round of boos. All right, let's take a short break. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
I would never forget the picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustleson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustleson's Hot Tub. With every spot purchase, Hustleson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustleson's vacation from taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustleson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
I taught 20 years, but I started forgetting my lectures. Eventually, he had to quit. The early Alzheimer's diagnosis allowed us to take control of the situation.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And a comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Please don't give Hochul any ideas about a 10% sales tax. Also, PA sales tax is only 6%. So if we get rid of pennies, I hope that they roll that back, make it only 5%, right? Maybe the same here in New York. Speaking of New York, we're going to tell you a little bit about the decision that Governor Hochul made. Well, that's what they claim anyway, that would not interfere with Elise Stefanik's old seat. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But a good update here. Hochul may extend the electric school bus mandate amid so many concerns, and we've heard extensively from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on this, where we know that the schools would have to implement EV buses before New York State would have to swap out their old diesel and gas automobiles for electric vehicles. During a press conference, Hochul was asked whether or not the mandate would be delayed as districts have to consider infrastructure. She replied, absolutely. We've been having many conversations about it. This is, aspirationally, we want this to happen. We also have to take into consideration that there's circumstances that have changed since this went into law. Although she said she set aside $500 million to alleviate the costs for localities, she acknowledged some accommodations need to be made for schools facing challenges. $500 million, unfortunately, isn't even scratching the surface on how expensive this would be. All New York school districts will need to buy electric buses by 2027, and by 2035, a mandate will go into effect to convert all school bus fleets to electric. These mandates receive criticism from school leaders and Republican lawmakers who have cited concerns with such a cost and infrastructure and time. It has not been confirmed yet if the deadline would be extended, but advocates are continuing to urge the governor to do so. So by 2027, right around the corner. Now, what's interesting on that, too, think about it being 2027 and not 2026. What is 2026? Well, that is when Governor Hochul is up for re-election. So imagine if the school votes, we started seeing the costs. So, of course, she delayed it 1 year further, so it wouldn't affect her re-election chances. So there's a lot of things that could really be hurting her as she nears 2026. But that's why we're seeing a lot of these payouts too. But good news that perhaps the electric school bus mandate will be extended a longer time frame. But when you talk about Governor Hochul, Richie Torres, if you're not familiar, looks as if he's going to primary her, and I think he stands a pretty good chance of defeating her. He's tried to take up the mantle of public safety, even though he was once a defund the police kind of person. But now he's trying to be public safety. He's been releasing numerous op-eds attacking her. And then you've got on the Republican side, at least as of right now, Mike Lawler, Representative Lawler, looks as if he is interested. But as we talked about with Sheriff Allard a few weeks ago, as Republicans, we always seem so late to the game to declare who's gonna run. Well, we need to get the name recognition going. So I hope whoever decides gets out there early and starts competing. Now, 2 New York state bills are fighting campus anti-Semitism. The New York Post editorial board says it's not nearly enough. It's about 15 months late, but 2 bills proposed in New York's legislature aim to fight back against the rising tide of anti-Semitism on campuses across the state. And it has been a major New York issue. We've seen how radicalized college campuses have become, and in this case, anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-police. One of the bills is the Access Act, which would make it easier for students to sue colleges whose administrations allow discriminatory harassment to go unchecked. Another would require dedicated anti-discrimination coordinators to guard Title VI rights at every campus. It's a start, but that's it. Recall, starting literally the day after the massacre of October 7th, colleges in New York and elsewhere exploded with full-throated support for Hamas and its butchers. Pro-terror thugs assaulted and intimidated Jews on campus, occupied public spaces and buildings, and echoed Hamas's call for the destruction of the Jewish state and the genocide of its Jewish inhabitants. And this went on for months. And remember, it's also very much the administration, too. Keep that in mind. It wasn't just the protesters being college kids. Very much it was encouraged by faculty, or that faculty would participate as well. The response of the schools themselves, public and private, was fine by us. Just last week, Cooper Union got slammed in court for arguing literally that students besieged in the school library by rampaging protesters would have been fine if they just hidden in the attic or fled campus entirely. The state's political leadership has been equally cowardly. Even condemning the Jew hate proved a bridge too far for most, with a few notable exceptions like Representative Richie Torres and Elise Stefanik, who is now set to fight the good fight at the UN. Yes, she did a wonderful job. It's really what made her a somewhat household name was because of the hearings that they held with those college professors and administrators and deans, costing a few of them their jobs. Though very often they lose their job not because they supported anti-Semitism and this protest. It was because they would call the police on the students, just to show you how bad things have gotten on college campuses. So it's good that the Empire State Democrats are making even these minimal moves on the issue, but vastly more needs to be done, like ending the COVID repeal of the state's anti-masking law. And remember, Governor Hochul talked a big game about that, the anti-masking law. She said, we'll have that conversation after there's a very public story about the intimidation of Jewish subway riders. But we knew at the time, and we predicted it on this program at the time, that it wasn't going to be an actual push. She just said we have to have the conversation, which that was just to get it out of the headlines. And really holding the leadership of the state's public university system to account for enabling things like this on college campuses. While these bills are a tiny and uncertain ray of light amid the darkness, it remains to be seen if New York's considerable pro-Hamas legislative caucus will allow their passage. Yeah, I have a feeling this will not even pass. Make no mistake, Jew hatred is alive and well in New York, home to a significant chunk of the world's Jewish population. As long as the woke left holds any real sway, that will never change. And I don't think much will happen from these bills. It's kind of to put on a show, but it doesn't look as if much will actually be done. We've got one other update on Governor Hochul as she makes the decision of what to do with Elise Stefanik's seat and that special election. We'll talk about that. A couple of your comments I see coming in as well. So keep them coming in. Keep the waves coming in. How was your weekend? Good to be back. Your thoughts on the Super Bowl. We had more people predict on the show that Philly would win, so congratulations to everybody who made that prediction, especially if you used one of the betting apps and won some money from it. If you did, congratulations. But your thoughts, and we've been talking this morning about the penny and the pardon of Rod Blagojevich, the DOJ dropping the case against Mayor Adams, plastic straws coming back. There's so many things I can't even keep them all straight. And we're only about an hour in, folks, and we still got a lot more to fill up the next hour. So keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. A comment from Ken. He says, ending the penny would make economic sense. But all the sheep will hear from the legacy media is that Trump is ending the iconic penny that has been a staple in American society since 1792. Not only is this executive order legal, but the ultimate effect will be raising prices on all goods and services. Thank you, Ken. Okay, an update. Do we have enough time in this hour? No, we're going to talk about Governor Hochul in the next hour because I don't want to run too late. But I did want to mention this. The FBI has uncovered 2,400 new records about President John F. Kennedy's assassination following President Trump's order to release the secret files. Those documents contain about 14,000 pages worth of material that a disclosure board was supposed to review but never saw, according to Axios. The White House learned about the never-before-reviewed documents on Friday as the Office of Director of National Intelligence presented its plan to disclose the remaining documents. This is huge. It shows the FBI is taking this seriously, said Jefferson Morley, the vice president of the Mary Farrell Foundation, which has the largest online record of JFK assassination records. The FBI is finally saying, let's respond to the president's order instead of keeping the secrecy going. Exactly what is in the newly discovered documents remains secret, at least for now. Trump ordered the release of all files from Kennedy's 1963 assassination, which has been mired in decades-long conspiracy theories. But experts have cautioned that the final release of documents is unlikely to reveal whether the official story that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in killing Kennedy is true, or the conspiracy theories suggesting he was aided by a shadowy government or criminal entities have any merit. The 1992 JFK Records Act mandated that all documents related to the assassination and investigation into where to be handed over to the official JFK Assassination Records Review Board in the National Archives, which would have them disclosed in full by 2017. Trump blocked the full disclosure during his first term on the advice of the CIA, but reportedly regretted that decision. A partial records release happened under Biden, but no new evidence came from it. Everything will be revealed, Trump said back on January 23rd, along with the records of Robert F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. All documents are expected to be released by March 9th, according to Trump's order, but some sources told Axios that the documents are still being subjected to heavy redaction recommendations, which Trump would not be pleased with. This is total deep state baloney, we'll say. All right, hour number one in the books. When we come back, a quick thing about New York State here. Then we're going to get back into Trump. Your thoughts on the end of the penny or all the stories of the day. There's normally about 4 or 5 typical president stories and then one that catches everybody's attention. President Trump is very good at that. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And we'll talk about some other issues as well. Elon Musk. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We will be right back.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
I would never picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Comment from a viewer. I bet Hochul won't be buying Elon Musk's cyber school buses. No, they probably won't be Teslas, will they be? Speaking of Governor Hochul, she did stop. This is how they word it, and I don't quite buy the wording of it, but this is how the New York Post words it. Governor Hochul stops the Democrats' plan to stall the special House election that would have hobbled Trump's agenda. That's according to sources familiar with the negotiations. Hochul put the brakes on Democrats' plan to rewrite rules for an upstate special election. Democrats' move would have left a safely Republican House seat empty through November as the GOP clings to a razor-thin majority. Now, that was even more concerning at the time, that it wasn't just this kind of manipulating the system to hurt Donald Trump and hurt his agenda that the American people overwhelmingly support in the election. But it also was all the way till November. So leave that, I think it's the 21st Congressional District, leave them without representation for nearly a year. Elise Stefanik, who we know is Trump's pick for the United Nations, would vacate her congressional seat when she is confirmed, leaving the GOP with a 2-seat majority until a replacement can take office in the red upstate district. Stefanik is expected to be confirmed, though the White House has not forwarded her for confirmation yet. So according to sources, it's not official yet, but according to sources, she has pumped the brakes on this. Democrats in the state Senate and Assembly introduced legislation on Friday that would delay holding a special election to fill the House district seat until the November 4th general election, keeping the seat vacant for months, not even holding the election during the primary. So really no way to excuse this. I mean, there's no way that they could even make up excuses that this wasn't politically motivated. Republicans slammed the Democrats for being hypocritical, engaging in an undemocratic partisan power play in a bid to try to hurt Trump's agenda. Quote, it deprives 800,000 people of representation. This is about thwarting President Trump's agenda in Congress, said Senate Minority Leader Robert Ortt. Albany insiders confirmed that Hochul requested the legislature to postpone any action on the bill for the time being while she continues talks with Trump over the controversial $9 toll to enter Manhattan south of 60th Street. So I guess she can't do two things at once. Interesting. One source close to the negotiation said Hochul considered the bill as leverage in her talks with Trump, who is considering killing congestion pricing. Quote, the bill is definitely on hold while these other conversations on congestion pricing are happening, a source said. Now, Hochul's office did decline to comment. Trump told the New York Post columnist Miranda Devine he would rescind the toll approved by the prior Biden administration through the U.S. Department of Transportation he now controls. But he also noted he is in conversations with Hochul about the issue. I think it's really horrible, but I want to discuss it with her at this point. If I decide to do it, I will be able to kill it off in Washington through the Department of Transportation. GOP sources confirmed that Trump's confirmation of Stefanik has been slow-walked over concerns that her vote may be needed to get his agenda through the razor-thin majority of the House. Party members are concerned if she officially resigns, her seat could be vacant for the months leading up to the election or to the special election. But Republicans also said Hochul is on thin ice and a well-financed lawsuit is already in the works if she and Democrat-run legislature try to keep the seat vacant by waiting until November 4th to hold a special election. Hochul is weak politically, said one GOP insider. Hochul and the Democrat lawmakers are even getting pillared by liberal media outlets for trying to do this partisan power play. Representative Mike Lawler, again, someone who most people think is looking to run for governor, and other state Republicans last week sent a formal letter to Trump's Department of Justice asking for a racketeering probe, a RICO probe, into Hochul and state legislative leaders over the just shelved legislation to delay the special election. And again, originally it was talked about of just being a delay until June, which is bad enough. Then the conversation focused on November 4th. Or said that it was a disgraceful scheme. While this bill appears to be defeated for now, we will remain vigilant against any effort to bring it back. The fact that Democrats even attempted this sham is proof of how corrupt and desperate the Albany swamp has become. Senate Republicans will continue to stand up for the people of New York, fight back against the disgraceful attacks, and put the needs of the people, not power-hungry politicians, first. So there is your update. Again, I wouldn't count your chickens quite yet before they're hatched, because it will be interesting to see if she does try to use it in this conversation about congestion toll, congestion pricing, or just in general. Well, once the smoke clears from that, maybe she tries to push it through so that Republicans do not have another seat in the House. All right. This is interesting. On radio, we used to do kind of as a joke a thing called Freaky Friday and have some strange stories where I brought to you the new documents as they've quote-unquote found on JFK. Well, how about this? Coming from the Daily Mail, how I know Trump is about to open the floodgates when it comes to UFOs, according to an expert. Donald Trump could be poised to pull back the curtain on UFOs, according to an expert. Dr. Stephen Greer, one of the driving forces behind the UFO disclosure movement, claims a new administration is considering executive orders that would publicize the government's involvement in secret UFO research. He says a wave of new whistleblowers are set to come forward, exposing how they worked on top secret projects while involved retrieving and back engineering otherworldly crafts. Dr. Greer said, with the new president, I've been working with a number of people close to him, encouraging a number of executive orders to launch this sort of investigation, provide whistleblower protection and action. Now, he's retired emergency physician who began working in the 90s to persuade whistleblowers in the military, government, and corporations to come forward. Dr. Greer said, quote, "The ones I'm working with are waiting to see what the new administration does, what the new Congress does, the way to see if there's lethal or legal pushback from these covert operations." The covert operations Dr. Greer refers to are secret groups within the government, which he believes work to prevent the release of information relating to alien technology. I didn't expect that one today. I didn't expect the penny to be under attack either. So you never know what a new day will bring. First, we learned about JFK, and the release of more documents that we didn't know existed. And now there's an expert, a UFO expert, that says Trump is about to open the floodgates when it comes to the UFO. All right, we talked about this throughout the morning. Trump revealed that he doesn't view J.D. Vance as his successor in 2028, saying no, but he's very capable. Brett Baer, in an interview taped ahead of the Super Bowl, said, "Do you view Vice President J.D. Vance as your successor, the Republican nominee in 2028? Trump said no, but he's very capable. I think you have a lot of very capable people. So far, I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's too early. We're just getting started. By the time we get to the midterms," Brett Baer interjected, "Vance is going to be looking for an endorsement." Trump said, "A lot of people have said that this has been the greatest opening almost 3 weeks in the history of the presidency." Now, we know the VP was overseas while this conversation was happening. He attended an artificial intelligence summit in Paris before traveling to the annual Munich Security Conference in Germany, which will be held this upcoming weekend. It's possible this is why they believe, this is many speculating, the reason that he wouldn't endorse Vance, full-throated endorsement, is because he believes, and he has said it time and time again, that he could maybe run for another term. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But it is possible that Trump chose not to endorse Vance as his successor to avoid calling attention to the fact that he is constitutionally obligated to leave office when he completes his second term in January of 2029. Trump frequently muses about changing the Constitution to serve a third term, but that's understood partially as a way to avoid obtaining the lame duck status that could sap his political power. Vance is the third youngest vice president in U.S. history and was selected by Trump as his running mate in July at the urging of Donald Trump Jr. That could be some more speculation there. Does he want his successor to be someone like Don Jr.? I was a little, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed that he said no, but he's very capable. Presidents don't always support the vice president's aspirations for higher office. Barack Obama discouraged, if you recall, Joe Biden from running for president in 2016, clearing the way for Hillary Clinton. Biden ultimately ran in 2020 and won the White House, succeeding in defeating Trump where Clinton had failed. So your thoughts about not receiving the endorsement? Now, it's early on. Here we are. It's only February of 2025. So the fact that we're looking ahead to 2028 is a little absurd. But the fact that Donald Trump did not endorse J.D. Vance. Your thought on that? What's your opinions on that? I've got to, full disclosure, admit that I do like J.D. Vance a lot. I think he's been doing a fantastic job. I think he's perfect to push the kind of MAGA message. He doesn't have the attack style that Donald Trump has, but he is very, very capable of handling the Sunday morning talk shows, for instance. That's where I first became impressed with him, because he was handling the anger and the hatred coming from the various reporters that were talking to him. And then I saw in person when he was in Williamsport, and I went to that rally, and he's taking questions from reporters that ranged all the way from really local Williamsport issues all the way up to national, and he handled it perfectly. So your thought on that? Now, Trump does muse about a third term, and as this piece by Maggie Haberman says, over and over again, the president's suggestion that he would seek to stay in office beyond the constitutional limit comes as he's pushed to expand executive authority. The choice of who would be included would be the president's sole opinion, Mr. Trump said, chuckling, and he was giving himself a 25-year period to make the selections. A short time later, at a breakfast at the Washington Hotel, Mr. Trump joked again at the prospect that his time in office could extend beyond 2 four-year terms. They say I can't run again. That's the expression. And somebody said, I don't think you can. Oh. Just 8 days after he won a second term, Mr. Trump, whose supporters attacked you know all that, come on. He has floated the idea frequently in public He couches the notion of staying in office beyond 2 terms as a humorous aside. In private, Mr. Trump has told advisors that it's just one of his myriad diversions to grab attention and aggravate Democrats, according to people familiar with his comments. And he has made clear that he is happy to be past a grueling campaign in which he faced 2 assassination attempts and followed an aggressive schedule in the final weeks. Yeah, aggressive is an understatement. The work ethic, especially when it came, well, in office, but also when it comes to campaigning, I don't think he would actually really want that. Think of how violent it became with 2 assassination attempts at least against him. But he does do it to get under some people's skin, and it works, doesn't it? But that, again, it doesn't quite explain to me why he didn't endorse J.D. Vance. So you can argue that it's way too early. That, yes, he's very capable, but let's see how things unfold. The 3rd-term gambit would also serve another purpose. Political observers noted keeping congressional Republicans in line as Mr. Trump pushes a maximalist version of executive authority with the clock ticking on his time in office. Quote, it serves Donald Trump's public relations to start the rooster crowing that he may serve a 3rd term because it makes him not a lame duck, said Douglas Brinkley. It insinuates that he's one of the greats like Franklin Delano Roosevelt and that the people are demanding another term, and I guess I'll do it because I'm a patriot, Brinkley added, referring to the 32nd president whose 4 terms in office spurred the constitutional amendment setting presidential term limits. A White House spokesperson did not return a comment. Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor of Texas, said people are already talking about changing the 22nd Amendment so he could serve a 3rd term. If this pace and success keeps up for 4 years, and there's no reason it won't, most Americans really won't want him to leave. 3 days after Mr. Trump was sworn in for the 2nd time, Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee, a relative newcomer in the House, proposed an amendment to the Constitution that would allow the president to serve a 3rd term. His proposal, the presidents who serve 2 non-consecutive terms, like Mr. Trump, would be able to run again. So it works specifically for Trump and basically no one else. He is dedicated to restoring the republic and saving our country, and we as legislators and as states must do everything in our power to support him, Mr. Ogles said. And just tying in with the quote-unquote popularity that they're referencing, there was 2 polls that came out that were very interesting about people's attitudes on Trump thus far. Maybe we'll get to that in just a moment. Because I don't want to. Yeah, there they are. We'll bring it up after break. Keep those comments coming in. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street. Recording a couple comments from viewers, and I see I missed a few as I was running around here. I believe Elon Musk will run for president in 2028. I don't know. Does he? Well, he was born in South Africa, right? But does he seem to signal that he wants to be in the political side of things? I don't know. I think that's a fair point that you raised, but I don't think. I don't know. Comment from a different viewer. Not sure what I think about a third term, but I am sure I would like to see term limits for all senators and congressmen, etc. I could not agree more. I think that's the easiest way to make the biggest change in government and make it more about for the people than about the individuals, which we had referenced people earlier in the program that someone commented about just the money these people make from being in elected office. So I agree with you. Term limits would make a major change. CBS News has a poll out that 70% believe Donald Trump is making good on his campaign promises. This was a Sunday CBS News poll underscoring the establishment media's tizzy. Trump campaigned on restoring the economy, ending the weaponization of the justice system, of justice, securing the southern border, deporting illegal aliens, and purging government waste, fraud, and abuse. While 70% of Americans say Trump is delivering on his promises, only 30% claim he is doing different from what he promised. Americans also gave Trump, who holds a 53% approval rating, high marks on various qualities. 58% said he has been effective. 60% characterized him as focused, and another 55% described him as competent. 69% said he is tough, and 63% said Trump is energetic. Yeah, I would say tough and energetic is kind of an understatement, but that is a CBS News YouGov poll. A plurality, 49%, said Trump is doing more than they expected in his first few weeks of office, and 61% said Trump is doing things that they mostly like. Wow, that's impressive. The survey also looked at a variety of Trump policies, some of which he campaigned heavily on, such as immigration. Most, 59%, approve of the Trump administration's program to deport immigrants illegally in the U.S., and another 64% agree with sending U.S. troops to the southern border. So all encouraging numbers for the president. Now, George Stephanopoulos, as we talked about the Sunday shows and just the shows in general, Good Morning America host George Stephanopoulos has been, and I quote, miserable after being forced to apologize following the President Trump fiasco. And staffers are already speculating about who might replace him. And we've seen quite an upheaval in the news media lately, as we saw Chuck Todd, Jim Acosta, and we've had these conversations in the past. But George Stephanopoulos is a little bit more interesting because they had to pay, because of him, Good Morning America or ABC News had to pay Donald Trump $15 million to go to his presidential library. So in effect, the mainstream media, the legacy media that hates Donald Trump so much and makes that crystal clear, does not hide it, are now effectively paying for his presidential library. And you've heard me say this in the past on the program. I hope they even give George Stephanopoulos a commemorative brick to be put there at the presidential library. So everybody knows that George Stephanopoulos had a big role in paying for the Trump library. But they say he is miserable at work. Stephanopoulos has been rumored to be on his way out, according to multiple network sources, since ABC News parent Disney agreed to settle a defamation suit in December over the anchor insisting on air that Trump was, quote, found liable for rape, end quote, instead of sexual abuse in a lawsuit by journalist E. Jane Carroll. As part of Disney's deal with Trump, the former Democratic operative who co-hosts Good Morning America was forced to issue an apology. The whole episode has turned out to be emasculating for the weak host, who has been isolating himself even more than usual since the settlement. That's according to a source familiar with the onset. George seems miserable, the source said, musing that the network could pull the plug on him this summer when things are dead or later in the year. He's definitely gone, the insider predicted. He's a dead man walking for sure. Multiple sources added that he could remain at the network in a lower profile way, possibly working on film and TV projects. But another source shot this down altogether, saying this is nonsense. Anyone watching Good Morning America can see he's engaged, all in, and as committed as ever. He's happy to be here. Now, a rep for Stephanopoulos would not comment. The network is currently shelling out around $75 million annually for Roberts, Strahan, and Stephanopoulos, a massive sum considering TV audiences are shrinking and the importance of morning shows has waned, according to this piece from the New York Post. And they say Robin calls the shots at Good Morning America. All right, there you go. George Stephanopoulos could or could not be miserable at GMA after he was forced to apologize to Trump. Also, those that are attacking the president, 5 former Treasury secretaries issued a stark warning calling out President Trump's latest move at the Treasury as a direct threat to, quote, American democracy's financial backbone. The letter, published in the New York Times, unites Robert Rubin, Lawrence H. Summers, Timothy Geithner, Jacob Lew, and Janet Yellen, all veterans of Democratic administrations, in condemning what they described as, quote, arbitrary and capricious political control of federal payments. While significant data privacy, cybersecurity, and national security threats are gravely concerning, the constitutional issues are perhaps even more alarming, they wrote. Now, at the heart of their concern, of course, is Elon Musk and Doge. Musk, leading Trump's drive to shrink the federal government, is now entangled in what the former secretaries say could unlawfully undermine the nation's financial commitments. Historically, the Treasury payment operations has been overseen by a small group of nonpartisan career civil servants, but the letter claims this norm has been shattered by political actors working for Doge. They lack training and experience to handle private personal data. This power subjects America's payment system and highly sensitive data within it to the risk of exposure, potentially to our adversaries. Though a federal judge has temporarily blocked Musk's access, citing congressional control over the purse strings, the former secretaries warn the threat is far from neutralized. Quote, people often rely on these funds for survival, making any risk of their cutoff or delay existential. Any hint of the selective suspension of congressionally authorized payments will be a breach of trust and ultimately a form of default, and our credibility, once lost, will prove difficult to regain. So 5 Treasury ex-Treasury secretaries during Democratic administrations saying that Trump is a threat to democracy. We've got some more things to talk about. Wow, look at all these comments coming in. Thank you. Keep them coming in. We will try to get to as many of your comments as we can when we come back, but we have to take a short break. I'm running a little late this morning. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
I would never picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Let's beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustleson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustleson's Hot Tub. With every spot purchase, Hustleson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustleson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustleson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us. A few people here expressed their dislike for George Stephanopoulos. So thank you for that. We won't go into all the names that he was called, but I do appreciate that comment. I just always thought it was, well, it's a very good example of the media not presenting the fact that he was a Democrat operative, that he worked for the Clinton administration. They try to present him as, nonpartisan, just a matter of facts, by the book kind of guy. And we know for a fact that he isn't. It's just interesting how they've always done that throughout his career. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. This viewer writes, we all have a crazy liberal friend that we have to educate on occasion. This weekend, as one such friend tried to blame Trump for the high egg prices, I had to explain that it takes at least 4 months for a growing pullet, is that how you say that, to begin producing eggs. If you kill the chickens to prevent the spreading of avian flu, you'll have to replace the laying hens, which takes time. We just have to explain that Trump will make chickens great again. Yes, Trump will make chickens great again. Comment from a different viewer. Trump has given Hamas until Saturday to return all hostages. Yeah, after seeing how they've been treating those hostages, it is disgusting. I had numerous people say that because we were talking about that this morning on the program. Trump does mean business. He said, what is it, all hell will break loose, something like that, if they're not released. And he said not in dribs and drabs, not 1 here, 3 here, 4 here, 2 here. No, they're all to be released. If they're, and he speculated that they may not even be still alive or could be on death's door because of the way they've been treated. But yes, he said at noon or 12 o'clock on Saturday, Hamas better release all the hostages or all hell will break loose. That's according to Trump. And he means business. And that's what's so troubling to groups like Hamas and to various other, I don't even like to use the term leaders with Hamas, but, other power brokers, if you will, other powerful people. You just don't know what you're going to get from Trump in a good way. When he says all hell will break loose, we better prepare. Because that's exactly what will happen. All right. Hi, this is Tim. Hi, Tim. Elon Musk can't run for office, for president, because he's not a U.S. natural born citizen, excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Yeah, because he was from, South Africa? Is that where it is? But yes, thank you for that. I didn't think he could. But I don't even know if does he seem to want to be political even? Because if you look at it, looked like at the beginning of Doge. Vivek Ramaswamy left Doge because he wants to run for governor of Ohio, it looks like. Elon seems happy cutting the finances here, the waste, fraud, and corruption. So thank you for that comment from viewer. Next up, Frank, to continue, this is from Ken. To continue the theme of getting rid of bad ideas like the paper straw, when you talk with the president again, you should suggest that he brings back incandescent light bulbs. Great point, Ken. I will make sure to bring that up in our next conversation, when we go to get coffee or something. Yes, bring back incandescent light bulbs. I very much agree with you on that. Next up, the federal comment from a different viewer. The federal workers seem upset by the thoughts of losing their jobs. That's what the private sector has to deal with on a daily basis. When companies need to make cuts due to overspending, they just do it, and the workers have to deal with it. Same for the federal government. Yeah, you see that a lot. Especially these people that have been working from home for years now. It's not the way it's done in the private sector. So yes, many of us in the private sector have always had to deal with that daily basis of wondering what the future holds for your job. Federal workers, normally it's just spend, right? Hey, by the way, Jeffries launched a new task force to battle Trump. Now, Hakeem Jeffries was very instrumental in that push to delay the special election for at least Stefanik, which that supposedly is off the table now. Governor Hochul says it's off the table, but didn't completely write it off. To think that they would leave, because it's a Republican district, leave the 21st Congressional District in New York without any representation, not just till June with the primaries, all the way in November. It goes to show Hakeem Jeffries plays dirty. He said Monday he is launching a new task force to combat the Trump administration's efforts to upend the federal government. Democrat lawmakers are scrambling to show infuriated grassroots allies that they are doing everything they can within their limited power to counter the Department of Government Efficiency. Quote, we are engaged in a multifaceted struggle to protect and defend everyday Americans from the harm being inflicted by this administration, Jeffries said. As part of the effort, the Democrat leader said he is establishing a rapid response task force and litigation working group led by Assistant Minority Leader Joe Neguzzi. That's one thing that I've been talking about this kind of in private. I'm sure we brought it up on the show too, but by the time they craft their message to attack Trump on some issue of the day, that issue is already in the rearview mirror because he's done 10 or 11 other things. For instance, just think about what we talked about yesterday, Rod Blagojevich, or on this morning's program from yesterday, Rod Blagojevich being pardoned, talking about getting rid of the penny, talking about bringing back plastic straws to the federal government. I mean, there's just so many things, and the Democrats are flat-footed. They don't know how to craft a message, and by the time they do craft that message, that topic is so far gone that it's no longer relevant. But the group will be co-chaired by Representative Rosa DeLauro, Jerry Conley, and Jamie Raskins, the ranking members of the Appropriations, Oversight, and Judiciary Committees, respectively. It's all hands-on-deck effort simultaneously underway in Congress, the courts, and the communities. Now, Democrats' actual options for waging war against Trump and Elon Musk are restricted due to Republicans holding the majority in both chambers of Congress. This is why people say elections have consequences, and this is another example. Wow, a lot of comments coming in. Keep those comments coming in. Representative Val Hoyle from Oregon, I believe it is, said on CNN's News Central that Democrat lawmakers will not vote to fund the government if Republicans are advancing Donald Trump's agenda, which, quote, undermines the American people. So they're going to close down the government because Donald Trump is making good on what he promised the American people he would do. That's what I think those in the media and those in Washington are so shocked at when it comes to Trump, that they don't expect him to actually accomplish what he says he's going to accomplish. But if you recall from the first term, he will work like you know what to accomplish everything that he has promised. And some of these things, even as something as simple as the Gulf of America, which kind of became a campaign, I'm not going to say staple even, kind of a campaign throwaway term that he was saying at some of these rallies. What did he do when he got into office? He even brought it up in his inaugural address. So, yes, he does follow through on his promises. Now, some things don't always come to fruition, but like he works like heck behind the scenes to make sure it is done, that he accomplishes his goals. So I think there is a hatred for him over that because that's not how politicians normally happen. They campaign out one thing and then do another. Well, again, Val Hoyle, a representative out of Oregon, saying, I think Hakeem Jeffries, I do trust him to be, he is our leader, and we will use whatever power we have. They will need Democratic votes to pass this budget. And fundamentally, we're not going to vote for something that undermines the American people. So we're not going to vote for funding the government because we don't like Trump's policies, the policies that the American people voted in a landslide. So think of the arrogance in that statement. Nobody voted for Elon Musk, she said. He bought the election. Wow, how dare she say that when Kamala Harris received $1.5 billion, close to $2 billion in kind of this dark money coming from people like Soros and others. But they're so predictable, aren't they? But fundamentally, he had put out on Twitter that, people are going to have to suffer in order for us to make America great again, meaning they have no intent of lowering prices, at least not in the short term. Nothing they have done has addressed prices for consumers or the economy. It's all about retribution. Boy, that was one talking point after another. When we come back, we're going to talk about this tidal wave of resistance coming for Elon Musk. We've got a lot to cover. And wow, look at this. A lot of comments coming in. Keep those comments and keep those waves coming in. And we're having a good show this morning. It's going fast, though. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Trust you to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
Season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. I heard that they want to start impeaching judges that get in the way of Trump's agenda. I have not heard that, but that may be a conversation that people are having. Sure. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Thanks for writing in, Fred. It seems that the Democrats have moved to the constitutional crisis theme and away from nobody voted for Elon. According to my count, of the millions of federal employees, only 540 of them are elected. That's a very good point. Yes, I've noticed that that's Elon was not elected. Nobody voted for Elon. That's a little bit getting away from the constitutional crisis theme, but they're kind of piggybacking the two together. Comment from a different viewer. Trump has and will deploy bunker busters that Biden wouldn't allow Israel to use. Hamas's days are numbered. And you can tell they're concerned just by the, I guess you'd call it a press release that they released discussing withholding the hostages. And so when Trump says all hell will break loose, Hamas knows it to be the case and is seriously considering on what to do on Saturday. So you're right. Their days are numbered. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Excellent show. Have a wonderful day. Well, thank you. I will have a wonderful day now that you called it an excellent show. I appreciate that. I think it has been a really, really good show this morning. Okay, so there's a tidal wave of resistance coming for Elon Musk, according to an opinion contributor at The Hill. Elon Musk is on a tear through the federal government. And by the time you read this, who knows what he could be up to? He could be sitting at the Resolute desk with President Trump locked in a broom closet. Trump would deserve it because the free reign he has given Musk to upend government functions is inexcusable. Again, this is from Savante Mirak. Watching Musk lead an agency-by-agency stampede, displacing dedicated workers and demanding access to the most sensitive information is a horror show. So now all bureaucrats are dedicated workers, even though we learned that many have been working from home for years now. I mean, come on. Well, the way they rewrite to tug at your heartstrings. To Fred's point, that we talked about earlier with USAID, that is a fine example of that, where they're portraying, and especially if you watch the Sunday shows, they're portraying USAID as some untouchable human resource that has helped so many, when we really learn about the waste, fraud, and corruption with it. Comment from a viewer. Frank, what is your opinion? You can eliminate pennies, nickels, and dimes, keep quarters for public parking and laundry machines. Hey, that's not a bad idea. Let's get rid of all of them except for the quarter, and that could get a little confusing, I think. But yeah, so we can get our candy bar out of the vending machine. I agree, but let's keep going. Now, I think we should keep probably the dimes down to dimes, don't you? Your thoughts. But so watching Musk lead an agency-by-agency stampede, displacing dedicated workers. The agency-by-agency stampede sounds amazing. I think the displaced dedicated workers, I'm not saying there aren't dedicated workers, but I think that's maybe a little overhype in this opinion columnist's piece. And there are two reasons for this. One is that the authority he's been given is on extremely shaky legal ground. At best, the other one is that even if it can somehow be legally justified, it is incredibly damaging and reckless to give this power to someone with a record like Musk's. Musk's business dealings have always been highly suspect. He and his businesses have been sued dozens of times. The list is mind-boggling. Wrongful death suits related to unsafe Tesla vehicles, suits over false advertising, unpaid bills, numerous lawsuits alleging racial discrimination, and suits targeting Musk's exorbitant pay and alleged illegal drug use on the job. His potential conflicts of interest are countless, but not so countless that this person doesn't want to go through and list them all. And to put it politely, he seems to lack the temperament to manage vast government resources and personnel. His behavior is described as nutty, deeply unwell, and characteristics of PTSD. He has reportedly tried to pressure women who work for him to have children with him. This is coming from The Hill. Musk has commanded one of the world's biggest megaphones, his X social media platform, which he uses to attack people and spread lies. One of the biggest obsessions is COVID. For years, he has spread conspiracy theories and misinformation about the virus. The kind of recklessness can cost lives. I wish there was an opinion piece about, Governor Cuomo's nursing home initiative that did actually cost lives, but I'll continue. Musk also seems to think the rest of us are not very smart. Recently, he posted that his efforts are our one chance to return power to the people from an unelected bureaucracy back to democracy. We're not supposed to notice that he is, in fact, unelected. Last week, Democrat leadership introduced legislation to block unlawful access to Treasury Department's payment systems. Senators also vowed to protest by opposing Trump executive branch nominees and doing everything they can to slow down the confirmation process. Additionally, more than 110 organizations signed a letter to Republican and Democrat House and Senate leadership calling on Congress to investigate Musk and his so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Congress has a right and a responsibility to fulfill its oversight role here and to protect its own constitutional spending power. We're also seeing an avalanche of lawsuits in response to Doge activities, as well as furious public protests. This is good because it seems to be working. The Trump administration says it's curtailing some of the access given to Doge. In other words, we do have tools to protect our society and democracy. So there it is. Musk wasn't elected, but he's also a constitutional crisis. He's a threat to democracy. And yes, we have limitations right now, but we are not powerless. And there's one more thing. The clock is ticking very quickly toward the midterms. Voters will be primed to punish the outrageous Trump-Musk overreach at the ballot box if we show them the damage his wrecking crew is doing at every turn. Fortunately for us, that won't be difficult, said Savante Merrick, the president of the People of the American Way. A tidal wave of resistance is coming for Elon Musk. Do you agree? One, and I mentioned this earlier in the program, a reverend out of Tennessee has called for Christians to, quote, get violent and fight against Elon Musk's effort to increase government efficiency, telling his congregation that he has left them with no other choice. This is a live sermon that was streaming on YouTube. Dr. Steve Caudle of Greater Second Missionary Baptist Church in Chattanooga claimed that Musk's Department of Government Efficiency threatens to steal Americans' information and money and said that a violent conflict will be coming. Quote, in this nation, I'm worried that we are on the verge of bloodshed. This is an attempt to take us back to a day that we do not want to go to, and we will not go to. Therefore, there will be conflict. I pray that the peace of God will win out and overcome the madness that is attempting to take over this nation. And I will say to you, beloved, no one likes violence, but sometimes violence is necessary. When Elon Musk forces his way into the United States Treasury and threatens to steal our personal information and your Social Security check, there is a possibility of violence. Sometimes the devil will act so ugly that there is no other choice but get violent and fight. Wow. All right, so the anger against Elon Musk, that coming from a Tennessee reverend, to get violent and fight. You would think with the rhetoric and what we saw was 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump that maybe people would calm down the rhetoric a little bit, but no, it's been quite the opposite. You've heard from elected officials saying that you got to fight in the street and these type of things. We're going to talk a little bit more about Doge, a little bit more about Musk. Keep those comments coming in. I appreciate it. We're having a fun time this morning, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
I would never forget the picture that I I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
There's been another shooting at a local elementary school. According to authorities, the suspect acquired the gun from a family member's home before using it to take the lives of innocent children and teachers.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
The Big's website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. The shady Democrats are no doubt against Musk because he is going to take their cash cows away. Yes, I think that's why you saw that quote-unquote expose on USAID and all of these videos trying to tug at the heartstrings. The left does not like when you start talking about fiscal responsibility and start talking about cutting back government spending because so many people have so much to gain. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I don't believe for a minute that Elon is doing anything that Trump isn't aware of. He has his pulse on everything. Good show. Well, thank you for calling it a good show. Yes, I don't think for one moment that he doesn't know, that Trump doesn't know exactly what Elon Musk is doing. I think, you know how the media is. They paint these narratives. It's like they started by saying that Elon Musk was the real president, remember? That he was actually running the country. So they're just trying to get their sea legs on them, so to speak, and figure out which way they want to attack. And now it seems to be a constitutional crisis. And it said Elon Musk was not elected. But think of all the people in federal government that were not elected that we've learned made a lot of decisions for us and spent a lot of our money. The nameless, faceless bureaucrats that we talked about so often on this program before the election that Trump is now trying to clear out and to clean up government efficiency. Here's an example. A contract for a pricey museum exhibit for none other than Dr. Anthony Fauci has been canceled as Doge exposed the rampant waste. In the past 48 hours, HHS canceled 62 contracts worth $182 million. These contracts were entirely for administrative expenses. None touched any healthcare programs. This included terminating a $168,000 contract for an Anthony Fauci exhibit at the NIH Museum. One person writing, root it out, boys. Find that waste, fraud, and abuse. I knew the government was bloated, mismanaged, and slow, but I never knew that was possible. Everything's happening so fast and efficiently. This is an astounding thing to watch. It is pretty amazing to watch as you learn about how much waste there is. I mean, think about that. $168,000 of your money and my money was being used on an Anthony Fauci museum exhibit. Dr. Anthony Fauci. Meanwhile, Senator John Kennedy recently highlighted some of the worst things Doge uncovered. Musk is doing what the American people have wanted for years, but in Washington, common sense is illegal. Kennedy wrote, thanks to President Trump and Elon Musk, federal government spending is going through a detox. Painful, but necessary. Those addicted to the spending are jonesing. Thanks to President Trump and Elon Musk, but they need to get clean. Just say no to drugs. So already in the past 48 hours, HHS canceled 62 contracts worth $182 million. Quote, these contracts were entirely for administrative expenses. None touched any healthcare programs, and a $168,000 contract for the Dr. Anthony Fauci exhibit at the NIH Museum. We also learned that nearly 1,700 employees of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau were told Monday not to come to the office or do any work, as the agency became the latest target of President Trump's effort to shrink the federal government. Russ Voigt, the newly confirmed director of the White House Office of Management and Budget and acting director of the CFPB, told the workforce that he would have a surprise week off after similar actions preceded last week's bloodbath at USAID. Good morning, CFPB staff. As you have been informed by the chief operating officer in an email yesterday, the Bureau's D.C. headquarters building is closed this week. Employees should not come into the office, he wrote. Please do not perform any work tasks. If there are any urgent matters, please alert me through Mark Paola, the chief legal officer, to get approval in writing before performing any work tasks. Otherwise, employees should stand down for performing any work tasks. Now, Voigt last week requested a $0 quarterly allocation from the Federal Reserve, which funds the CFPB for its operations. I've learned that the Bureau has a balance of $711 million in the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection Fund. By law, I must take account of that sum when determining the amount reasonably necessary for the Bureau to fulfill its statutory obligations. I have determined that no additional funds are necessary. That never happens. Wow, they're doing a lot in cleaning up, aren't they? Let's take a short break. Wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Get those last second comments in, and we will be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Harder makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments, shall we? How about, oh, here we go. Victor Davis Hanson did a great piece on Musk on YouTube. Trump is again brilliant. He gets it done and Musk takes the heat and it's all legal. Thank you for that. Fred highlights the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7, no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and accounts of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. That's from the Constitution, and Fred said by the phrase from time to time, I don't think they meant every 250 years. That's a very good point. Thank you, Fred. And finally, how about the $59 million sent to my city to pay five-star hotels, I think that means New York City, for housing the illegal immigrants? It was said that the funds came from FEMA funds. How is that possible in this administration to allow that to happen? I assume you mean the Hochul administration or Mayor Adams. Trump last month signed an executive order to create a council to review FEMA as he expressed concerns over serious concerns of political bias in the agency. This is what Elon Musk had to say in his tweet. The Doge team just discovered that FEMA sent $59 million last week to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. Sending this money violated the law and is in gross insubordination to the president's executive order. The money is meant for American disaster relief and instead is being spent on high-end hotels for illegals. A clawback demand will be made today to recoup those funds. Now, whether or not New York City has it. But yes, thank you for highlighting that and bringing that to my attention. Also, in some other good news, Venezuelan planes sent to the United States for deportation flights returned to the country with nearly 200 deportees. 2 planes sent by Venezuela returned home Monday with nearly 200 Venezuelans who were in the U.S. illegally as part of President Trump's mass deportation plan. The 190 migrants returned to Venezuela signals a possible ease in tensions between the two lifelong adversaries, and a win for the Trump administration as it seeks to have countries take back their citizens found in the U.S. without authorization. Yes, I am going to go through some things quickly here. Comment from a viewer. Where is the money coming from to fund these lawsuits? If a Democrat who is responsible for bringing these lawsuits for personal gain and recognition is manifesting a lawsuit, then he or she should finance their own grievance out of their own pocket. That's a good point. A lot of lawyers are going to be making a lot of money during this administration. There is a piece, if you want to find out more about that $59 million, by the way, it's how FEMA spending on migrants exploded under the Biden administration. What began as $30 million allocation to solve a temporary problem in 2019 now has its own program, its own bureaucracy, and its own $640 million budget. This monster must be tamed. Trump also unleashed more ultra high-tech spy planes to target drug cartels along the border. That was announced yesterday. How am I doing on time? Okay. Glenn Reynolds asked the question, incompetent or crooked? Elon Musk exposing Washington's rotten system. And that's a piece that you can find for yourself at the New York Post as well. But the people paying the taxes who are more likely to be making $50,000 a year than $500,000 a year are likely to feel differently. They might feel bring it on. Not everyone will be happy since all that money is going to somebody, whether it's a fraudster or some NGO official in a $500,000 job funded by government grants. But the people paying taxes are likely to feel different. Bring it on. Trump plans to raise taxes on sports team owners who have a whopping collective net worth of nearly $1 trillion. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for everyone who joined us, all the great comments, all the back and forth. And we will be back tomorrow morning, starting at 6 a.m. and every weekday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.